Hello and welcome back to episode 8 of the Irish Mags Show, brought to you by the Irish Mags NUFC Supporters Group. My name is Paul. I will be your host for today. And joining me are a very clean-shaven, fresh-faced Mr. Alan Williamson. Say hello, Alan.
How's it going, lads? How are we?
And an equally clean-shaven, fresh-faced Mr. Chris O'Martin. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris. Hello, everybody. How you doing?
He's got it. He's got his phrasing, his catchphrasing again. That's
I
2
love
weeks
it.
in a row. You won't be getting a third. And I'm delighted to say we also have a very special guest this week. A little bit clean shaven and fresh faced as well, but also looking very chilled and relaxed after a welcome gap in Newcastle fixtures this week. And if you're watching on YouTube, also donning a retro Ireland football jersey just for the occasion. It's our good friend Freddie from the London Mags. Welcome to the show, Freddie.
Hello, lads. Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller. To be honest, I wore the Ireland shirt because I heard there's going to be a quiz at the end, so I thought that you might go easier on me if I wore this. So that's all.
You see, so the problem with quizzes, Freddie, is we were doing a quiz where I was pitching Alan against Krisho, and it was basically like watching Newcastle play Sheffield United earlier in the season. And there were elements of that. The second time I'll quote The Simpsons where it was like, "Stop, he's already dead," because Alan was taking Krisho to the cleaners. So we may return next week with the quiz, but because we have a lot of questions this week, and we'll come to that in a minute, and we're going to be putting Freddie under the microscope and giving him a little bit of an interviewing. We'll see if we have time, but I think we have a lot of content to get through. Starting with you, Freddie, seeing as you're here and seeing as you're looking well in your Ireland jersey, I have to say. We might start by just asking you to tell our listeners and the Irish Mags a little bit about yourself. Some of our listeners may have heard you before on the social, where the London Mags and Irish Mags, aka Tev, obviously have another podcast of Newcastle orientation, but maybe just for our listeners, and it is your debut here on the Irish Mags show, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? I'll tell you to hold on your Newcastle origins because we do have a question in your Q&A about how we all came to support Newcastle. But maybe you can touch on basically your own involvement, especially with the London Mags, and of course how long you've supported Newcastle and the like.
Yeah, totally. Who is this guy? Why is he here? Why is he on my TV screen and or on my car audio? So yeah, I'm from the London Mags. So the London Mags is actually kind of one of the oldest supporters clubs in the UK. So it's been established since 1964, and it was originally kind of like the official London branch. And there's a few old photos that go back to that day. But I'm sort of a lifelong Newcastle fan. I've grown up in London with an Irish family, which is why I've kind of got that connection with the Irish Mags as well. So I've kind of met a few of your lads out and about, and it's fantastic to see the two organisations working together. But in terms of us guys, we're exactly kind of like that alternate reality that live just over the water. We meet up in the Dolphin with a football team, with a darts team, with a pool team. We do exactly what you guys do, but we're just over in the Big Smoke in London. So yeah, that's kind of who we are. So you might have seen us out and about and different things, etc. But like I say, no, I'm just really buzzing to be here, to be honest with you, because we've met up a few times in terms of London and Irish Mags, and anything we can do to push that closer together is honestly, it's a riot. We just need to get everyone in the same room.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. And like, so I suppose I'm going to ask you about kind of the size, like let's say the membership numbers of the London Mags. And I'd also love to know, obviously it's a bit different here, especially for me. I'm in the west of Ireland, right? Being a Newcastle fan, you expect to be a bit isolated, right? And be like one of the only ones or one of a few. And Alan and Krisha will know what I'm talking about. But I suppose in London, like I can only imagine you're just growing up and it's Arsenal, Chelsea, all around you. Is that the case?
Yeah, it was kind of like
and Spurs, but we don't like Spurs.
I didn't really have like a football team as a kid because it was either kind of like the Irish areas were like Manchester or Liverpool, and it was kind of like, well, that is just boring. Like, what's your affiliation to that? And then in London, going to school, it was all, it was around that time. I mean, I'm 31, so it was around that time where Chelsea got good. So there was a lot of Chelsea. I mean, where I'm from in London is more Palace, but it was kind of a bit more unfashionable to support Palace, especially when you have Chelsea that are doing really well. But I kind of just wanted none of that, which I think is, and I go back to a point about the Irish Mags, is that there's so many similarities with London and Irish Mags, because as soon as you're really, 10 or 20 miles away from Newcastle, you're all in that same boat, which is that it's a one club city, and it's very much like the Toon is very much an enclave in itself. So as soon as you go anywhere else, you're going to run into glory hunting supporters and other teams, and that's fine. But for me, it was, more of a, not to sound too sad, but more of a lonely journey for me and my brother as kids. And that was kind of, we stuck together and we had that. And these days, it's just mental to see, like, I don't think kids will have the same experience that any of us maybe had growing up with supporting Newcastle United. I think it's all changing for the better. But yeah, there's certainly that element of it would have been Chelsea, it would have been Man United, it would have been all those boring things. But it wasn't. It was Alan Shearer. It was Les Ferdinand. Yes. It was David Ginola, and it was Bobby Robson after that. So that's what hooked me and stole my heart.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and it might be a bit soon, but like I have a feeling that, as you know, over the next couple of seasons, we're going to start. You'll pass a park or a kids' football pitch, and there'll be a lot more black and white kids than there ever was before. Because I've noticed now, like I have nephews who play, and they're like 7 and 9. And there's a lot of Man City kids floating around. That was not a thing when I was growing up, and I know it wasn't a thing when you lads were growing up. PSG, actually, you see a lot of those as well. Obviously, the Messi factor and Neymar and everything. But I think if things continue, bar the blip we're in right now, I think we'd probably start to see a lot more kids support Newcastle, and it will become less unusual. And I say this with, childhood trauma of being the only Newcastle fan in my class. I think that will become a lot less rare and a lot less odd. Super. Well, Freddie, thank you for sharing that. Don't worry, we'll be back to you for more questions and more dirt on the London Mags in time to come. But as I said before at the top of the show, we have a lot to get through this week. So there's no real time to delay. I originally thought, lads, that we might have a bit of time to just relax and chill this week. There was no game at the weekend, so you're thinking a bit less stress. Our nerves not as bad in terms of what's going on. And I suppose that's probably been a little bit wiped out because there's been a hell of a lot of chaos, carnage in the transfer rumor mill. And that's probably going to take up a good chunk of today's discussion, because the last 24 or 48 hours has been bananas in comparison to the last few weeks.
Chaos.
Speaking of chaos, I don't know how long I don't know if we'll have time to talk about it, but our all-time Premier League best 11 certainly caused a bit of chaos on the social media last week, and we have definitely riled a few feathers and triggered some people, which is exactly what you want to do, really, when you're talking about such an emotive subject. And the other piece, the other segment we're going to do is our special listener Q&A segment. We asked our members of the Irish Mags community to give us some of their hot takes and some questions that they wanted us to discuss on the pod. And they did that exactly. We have loads to get through. Before we do that, lads, let's go back to the transfer topic. Because I've written down something here on our notes, lads, and all I've written is that the last 2 days have been absolutely batshit crazy. And I say that I don't say that lightly. We knew January was going to be a bit mad in terms of rumors, but then I don't know about you lads, but once the Darren Eales thing came out about FFP and then Eddie Howe reiterated it, I was like, things are going to be a bit tame now, and we might get one player, and it'll probably be Calvin Phillips. Alan, how wrong I was. Because for some reason, I'm going to come to you shortly, but for some reason, not only have the rumors kind of intensified with incoming transfers, but the outgoing ones have really, really ramped up. And this is, originally we were talking about Javi Manquillo and Jeff Hendrick and Isaac Hayden. It's gone way beyond that. And I think that's probably where we'll start, Alan, because the one that shocked me the most, and like so much so I nearly crashed the car, was a tweet that says Bayern are in for Kieran Trippier, and it was a serious, legitimate, like, for me, concern, but a legitimate rumor. Tell us more. Is this the truth, or in true Irish spirit, is this bollocks?
I do certainly think Bayern had an interest. There's no smoke without fire, as they say. I don't expect Bayern to reach our asking price of 13 or 14 million, because realistically, at 33, 34 years of age, is Trips worth that? To us, yes, he's worth 50 million to us. To a buying club, I don't think he's going to be worth that money now. So I can't really see it happening, although why it's happening, why we would look to sell him, does make sense. He's one of our top earners. He's one of our older players. He is a saleable asset, and anything we get back in, we can just pump straight back into the team. Will it happen? No, it's not happening. We're keeping Trips this year, hopefully.
Hopefully. I mean,
Hopefully.
the thing that's going around is it is one of the positions that we have good cover,
Yes.
backup, progression, succession ready, and with Tino Livramento. Now again, we all feel like it'll definitely happen. Trippier goes, Livramento's injured, we're back to square one. But yeah, from what I've seen lately, it seems like we're quite reluctant on it. Now, whether or not that stops Bayern coming in, I'm not sure. Speaking of that kind of idea of having replacements ready, on that right-hand side, Krisho, another rumor that surfaced in the last kind of 1 or 2 days, and definitely probably has maybe a bit more realism or traction to it, is Miguel Almiron, who, as far as I know, is linked with Al-Shabaab in the Saudi Arabian League.
Yeah.
Are we really ready to say bye-bye, Miggy?
Yeah, I'd nearly say that a lot of this has got to do with how badly we performed as well in December, because I think a couple of these guys knew that they were possibly on the way out or at the way out in the summer. I'm not saying they brought it onto the pitch with him, but I wouldn't say it's still the right track as it was before. They went to Eddie Howe with a list of saleable assets, and they said, Eddie, which ones can we not do without? And he went, okay. Isaac, Bruno, Jolinton, the rest of them, you're all right. Go ahead. So Miggy, on the way out, 25 million quid. It's not a rumor. It's going to happen in the next 2 days. And the brilliant thing about this is it allows us to go get Morgan Gibbs-White from Nottingham Forest, which is crept under my armpits, about 20 minutes ago. And I was like,
where nobody wants to ever creep, right?
No.
I had a shower. But that I've got an awful feeling that, look at how we played down the right wing. And Freddie, look, we all know this. We've all talked about it when we were out having a few outs. Trippier, Miggy, cross. Trippier, Miggy, cross. Right, we've been worked out. 6 or 9 months ago. It's been worked out. Yeah. So if Trips and Miggy go, well then we get a big lot of wages off the books. We can go out and get Gibbs White, or as I called it last week, we do a sneaky one on everybody and get Conor Gallagher.
Not seeing like for like there, and I did also see Freddie put his hands on his head at one point. I need to see what that was about, Freddie. Was this I don't agree with the Trippier Almiron part, or you are okay if we see Miggy leave?
I agree on the Trippier Almiron part. I totally get that. I think what we're talking here is a bit of strategy and a bit of tactics, right? So we're talking about tactically looking at going, okay, right, we need to fix this problem. But strategically, this is where if you don't think Miggy Almiron is any good, switch off now, because I'm the ultimate Miggy defender. I really am. And I think the difference is a lot of people see him get in these positions and they see him not have that end product or use his right foot. That kind of thing comes up a lot, right? But we're nowhere near ready to be looking at Miggy as the person to replace. We're not, because they discount his defensive ability and the fact that he runs. And everyone goes, oh, he just runs. It's like, okay, well, when we've got that number 6 and when we've got 3 or 4 more superstars to add to the team, we can have that conversation about goal scorers. But currently, we can't, because literally him, Murphy, I'll probably put in that bracket as well. The defensive work that they offer makes them kind of irreplaceable for me at the moment. I know we've got to have these conversations because we get told in the media every single day, don't we, that actually, we're going to have to sell everybody to kind of, be able to buy anyone else. We wouldn't have been that hampered by injuries. We wouldn't have been that hampered in this transfer window if it wasn't for the colossal amount of injuries. But for me, Miggy, I totally acknowledge the Trippier Almiron thing, but it's more about what he does defensively than attacking for me at the moment.
I mean,
I agree.
If we had less injuries, right? Do you think that we'd be trying to sell people this summer, or sorry, this January? That we'd be still looking to do this anyway, if we still had our full squad?
Probably not.
No.
I think we probably would, but because I think we wouldn't be using Miggy as much because Barnes would be in more. I think Miggy would have been used more as a replacement, and we wouldn't be as up in arms over the fact that we're losing him. But because Barnes went so early and he looks to be on the way back now, but you never know. I think that may have hampered us a little bit as well, if you know what I mean. But where hindsight's 2020.
Even not having not saying Murphy is to be all and end all, but not having him has just we've sucked a lot of football and minutes out of Miggy for someone who runs that level for every minute that he's on the pitch. But we'll park the Miggy conversation for now because I mean, according to Chris, it's happening. Eyes emoji on Miggy, lads, is all we can say. And Freddie, just one more for you, because this is another big one, and this is also like messing with my emotions. And it's Callum Wilson, who initially was linked with a move to Atletico Madrid. And if some of you already probably know this, lads, it's because Eddie Howe spent a lot of time over there with Diego Simeone on his career break, let's say, before he came to Newcastle. But even as recently as today, there's talks of AC Milan looking at him, which I think Fabrizio Romano has since kind of shut down. But Freddie, like, should we be looking at offloading Callum Wilson, thinking about age, injury rate, all that kind of stuff?
I've sort of got this horrible attacking, waking thought that might keep me up till 4 a.m. tonight about Chris Wood coming back and scoring a hat-trick against us and us having a lot of depth in that position. But I'll suppress that, and actually I think we should. Right now we're in a horror show anyway because of the amount of injuries. But if you looked at it soberingly and in the cold heart of day, and you looked at Callum Wilson, he's a 20-goal a season striker when he's fit, and at his age, I think it's brilliant. I think he's had a brilliant last year or so where he's got into the World Cup squad. He's gone and got that. He got his assist for England and all of that. Brilliant. It's fantastic. I almost think if there's anyone that deserves to go and, play for AC Milan or Atletico Madrid, it is him because he's a superstar. Yeah. But if you were looking at it in the cold light of day and thinking, what do we need to do? He is an outgoing, because he's only going to get devalued, isn't he? That's kind of my thoughts on it. What I would say on it, though, is that I definitely feel more kind of like it's a very sobering thought in this transfer window, isn't it? Like I never wanted it to be like this. I thought we'd just buy the world, but we haven't and we can't. And then it's very hard to accept that people like Callum might go. Sad, isn't it?
Sad, yeah, sad.
Yeah.
Do you want me to make you feel better? There are 9 days left in the transfer window.
Oh, God.
And if we were to sell any of those players we've just mentioned, we have the bones of a week to sort something out if we're keen on replacing them in this window, which we'll talk about very quickly. But before we move on to the incoming transfers, Alan, couple more doing the rounds for outgoings. We've seen Javi Manquillo go to Celta Vigo, reunited with Rafa Benitez. Love that. Jamal Lascelles to Besiktas is one that has been, I think that was going on about 6 or 8 months ago, if my memory is right.
They're back for him by the looks of things. I don't see that happening, but I also see us offering him a 1-year extension and selling him in the summer. That's how I think that will go.
Yeah.
And look, if they were keen last summer, they're keen now. They might still be keen in the summer. Fair.
Oh, come here. If they come in with 3 or 4 million, you take it. Sorry, if you come in with 3 or 4 million, you take it.
Yeah. And one other one that popped out of Chris Show's armpit, because apparently that's where transfer rumors go, hopefully to die, is Matt Target. Because apparently we're looking at Luton or Forest. Is that right?
Luton and Forest have tentatively, supposedly inquired about him. Now, this comes from the Twitter realms, yourself. Take that with a pinch of salt, as they say. But he wouldn't be one I'd be too unhappy to see go. If you believe what I said, he's on 100 grand a week, which is daylight robbery. Wow. I'm sorry, that is mental if he's on 100 grand a week. So he'd be one I would cash in on. So yeah,
fair. Well, look, only time will tell. Yeah. Sorry, Freddie.
Yeah, he's the 5th highest earner at the club or something like that. Bananas.
Wow.
And he's been hitting the target there, so he has the bank account. Hey.
Ooh, Paul won internet nil.
Yes. My jokes are funny. We'll know a lot more in a week, because by the time we have next week's episodes done and dusted, not only will we have played a couple of games, but the window will actually be wrapping up. So I'll say one thing, lads. We've not so far mentioned Botman or Bruno or Isak in that outgoing conversation. Long may that last. Let's jump over to incomings then. And it's again, I'll reiterate, when I heard the talk of FFP, PSR, we can't sign anyone, we're hamstrung by everything, I thought it might calm things down. There's still those rumors going around. New names are popping up every day. But Alan, one that isn't new, because this is almost a weekly segment on the Irish Mags show, is the Calvin Phillips saga. West Ham now, apparently, following previous links with Juventus and Crystal Palace. Is he going to West Ham now? And again, not Newcastle.
Come here, by all intents and purposes, according to Twitter, it's signed, sealed, and delivered that he's gone off and signed for West Ham. But he's only short of going back to Leeds now at this stage with all the clubs that are linked to him. Like, it's just bananas, really. Honestly, I still think in my heart of heart he will end up as a Newcastle player, but we only really are interested in players when they're not being talked about, and the fact that we're no longer being talked about in the Phillips talk leads me to believe that we are well in for Calvin Phillips on loan. So that's my 2 cents on him.
It's either that or agent shenanigans. Because it's very easy to use Newcastle as a platform to kind of spring out. Freddie, I'm actually going to come to you because there's a couple of other names going around. Now, I'm not going to ask you to give me the lowdown on some of these names. There's what I would describe as, and most people know, I'm a bit of a football manager enthusiast, as is Alan as well. But there's a few kind of wonder kid names going around. We've heard about Benjamin Sesko's, hugely rated over at Red Bull Leipzig. There's another Turkish wonder kid, Can Uzun, who's a number 10, an attacking midfielder playing for Nuremberg. A Swedish player called Lucas Bergvall, who I believe Barcelona have been looking at. But like, I'm not going to pick your brain on the players themselves, Freddie, but when I hear those names, I feel like these are players for the future, which I also feel like we did quite a bit of with Hall, with Livramento to an extent. Like, does that strike a bit of panic into you, Freddie, that we're looking at future players when we're 10th in the league and we're miles off the top 6?
It's more a Dan Ashworth question, isn't it? Because
he wouldn't come on the show, Freddie, so we got stuck with you. Sorry.
I think it's more a Dan Ashworth question, isn't it? Because like, my immediate thoughts when you were listing names there was Garan Kuyol, which is like, what is the development plan with that? Because I mean, Shola's currently running the setup in terms of loans. We've seen Ashby go out, isn't he? Where's he gone? Is he Derby? Is that right? Swansea. Sorry. This is why you didn't ask me to comment on these wonder kids. But basically, I think it's kind of more like, what is the strategy about us building for the future? Because our academy is clearly nowhere near the level. So I would see these more as like strategic buys that in a couple of years we might start to cash in, because I think the big elephant in the room at the moment is obviously this financial fair play. So if that's the club trying to get in on the market and then cashing in later, I'm all for it. Is it going to get anywhere near the first team? I doubt it. I can't see that.
Yeah, like I always love the idea that you have a club like, and Ashworth did this at Brighton, right? There are still players coming through at Brighton that most people haven't heard of, and they came through in the Ashworth era. Like, and I love the idea of us doing that. It's just that fear of, are we spending money there but not in the immediate kind of future? And I suppose, Chris, that could take us over to you, because there are, last week you brought us the Ederson news. Actually, we've since heard that Steve Nixon, the chief scout, was in Bergamo watching Atalanta and watching Ederson. There's a lot of talk going around about him, especially rumors that he's a potential Joe Linton replacement. Do you think that's still a thing? And probably the two things have started to coincide and overlap. Like, after we talked about Ederson and we saw it in Sky Sports, then the talk comes out that, Joe Linton is injured now, due to have surgery, may have played his last game for the club because of all the contract issues.
Well,
so we're looking at a replacement there.
Well, I think Joe Linton's still got. Well, Steve Nixon texted me last night, right? So he had a good crack. He had a good crack in Bergamo. It was a right crack. He loves the podcast. He just thought he'd let me know what was going down. But nice. 2020, very nice, right? 2025, Joe Linton we have, right? So Joe Linton's going nowhere. Okay, he's just started in the Predator ad, which I thought his acting was fantastic, by the way. But yeah, Joe Linton, he's just, like you say, he's one of the backbone guys of the team. There's no way that they're going to let him go, unless, again, like you said before, Alan, if a credible offer comes in, like ludicrous offer, like 80 to 100 million pounds or something. But I think Ederson is somebody like we were just talking about there a minute ago. Somebody that can come in and be now and start playing now as soon as he comes in. He's played all season. He's performed very well, supposedly. They did supposedly were looking at kind of holding midfielders, wander over, getting Tonali. But Ederson is definitely coming in. Just on the Wilson thing, real quickly, I think we should let Wilson bet on some matches. I heard you saying, I've seen this on Twitter. Sell him to AC Milan, then let him get caught, and then it'll just be payback. And any AC Milan fans listening, well, then there we go. But no, Ederson should. If we don't get Phillips, but I think not to ramble, but I think Alan is right. I think Phillips is coming in. This Ederson thing might be a bit of a red herring a little bit. We might be looking at him maybe in the summer or something. But I think the Phillips thing, the more quiet it goes, the more likely it is to happen. So Joelinton's going nowhere. Joelinton's going nowhere.
I like the idea of both of them because, like, there's talks that Ederson he's not a carbon copy of Joelinton, and there's not many people that are going to be a carbon copy of Joelinton. Maybe like a bus or something. But I like the idea of having both of them, and 3 Brazilians in our midfield, lads. It's quite a nice thought. And
imagine the uproar. If we had 2 Joelintons on the pitch running around kicking people.
I'd have a great. There would be yellow cards to beat the ban, lads. Paddy Power would implode with all the bets. But Alan, just in terms of any other names going around, speaking of that midfield, right in number 6, Kefren Thuram was back on the radar again this week. He's playing for Nice. Loads of clubs have been looking at him for ages, but yet he remains at Nice, who've been doing quite well in the French league. Anyone else or any?
There's Kefren Thuram. He has a 50 million buyout clause though, so I don't think that's going to be a January. There's Manu Kone at Mönchengladbach, who also has a 30 or 40 million buyout. Then there's the Philip Billing. I just think that's lazy journalists going, Eddie Howe bought him once before, he'll buy him again. Like, that's me just... Don't get me wrong, Billing is a very, very, very good player, but he hasn't started any of the last 4 games for Bournemouth. Does that mean he's going to come in and do a job for us? I don't think so, really.
Yeah, no. Freddie, it's not an exciting signing is how you describe it, right? Someone like Philip Billing, even though could be great, right? But doesn't get the juices flowing, is how I would say.
It doesn't, no. But I mean, the one thing I would just say about this is that it's definitely the most mental window that I think we've seen since the takeover. Because, I mean, look at how much activity... We kind of used to laugh, didn't we, about how, like, the spreadsheets of everyone we've been linked with. We used to be linked with a lot of people, but now it's kind of coming both ways. So I don't know currently which way is up or which way is down. And I think you'd be forgiven for feeling like that. It's exhausting every day, isn't it? Just to see all of that activity and think, I don't know if any of it's going to come up. I feel like I'm that meme where he's sort of got the drawing board out and he's looking at all the conspiracy theories and he's just thinking,
Freddie, if you want, right, you can just go and have a lie down for about 9 days, and we'll on the 1st of February we'll just fill you in on what's happened.
Let me know.
You'll be well rested by then. But it's fair to say, I mean, especially with social media, like, it's just more and more and more and more with social media. It's everywhere, and everyone wants to break a scoop, even if they make it up and just shake the magic 8 ball and hope that they get it right. Hope something hits. What's the phrase? If you throw enough at the wall, eventually it sticks. That's all we'll say about
Sugar.
that. But yeah, look, we just hope we get some signings in and don't get hit too heavy on the outgoings. Right. On to a new section for the Irish Mags Show, guys. As we said before, we have a great community, and we went out to that community for a bit of help because we wanted you to give us your questions to discuss live in the pod. Send us some of your hot takes, and also because we had Freddie coming on the show, and you answered. We're delighted to say. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop through some questions, and the good thing here, Chriso, is with these questions you can't get them wrong because there's no right answers. So you can relax there. We know why you had that shower and cleaned your armpits, because you were going to sweat profusely at the idea.
That's it. That's the truth.
You can relax for that. So we're going to bounce through some of the questions that we received. For anyone who's listening, by the way, we did this through WhatsApp. We also have set up an Irish Mags Patreon, which is just a free membership tier where we'd like to use it to interact more with the Irish Mags community, because we know we have a big WhatsApp group there that a lot of stuff gets talked about, but this could be a very good place for kind of Q&A stuff, hot takes and the like. So check us out on Patreon. It's the Irish Mags, and it is of course free, which is always nice. First question up is for you, Freddie, so no pressure, of course. It comes from Daniel Sanderson, and it says, personal question, Freddie. Freddie's now sweating. Are there many of the London Mags going to the Fulham Cup match, the 4th round in the FA Cup? And is there a meetup bar for the Mags around Hammersmith, around the Fulham area, apart from the one he saw posted on the NUFC supporters page? Freddie, Fulham.
Yeah, fantastic question. We've just announced it this afternoon, actually, at 6 o'clock. So I was kind of holding back on that one because I immediately wanted to just dive in and say, yes, there's loads going on. So the London Mags, we kind of do a lot home and away at matches. The Irish Mags do way more at St James's Park and have way more meetings. But because we're kind of in the UK, we dot around. So for London, yeah, we've got an increased allocation, only slightly, up to 3,800. We could have got more, but we're all knackered, really, aren't we? I think so. We'll let the club off the hook, I think, on that one. But it's going to be at Fulham. So usually, what would happen for a London game around this time of the season is the NUSC, the Newcastle United Supporters Club based in Newcastle, would arrange boats that go down the Thames. So we did it for the last day of the season against Chelsea. We also did it, I think, for Brentford before. It happens a lot. However, not to burst anyone's bubble, that's not going to happen because the boats are damaged because it's January, it's winter, and do you really want to be an open top boat on the Thames? Go into a 4th round effort? No, you don't.
No.
So what we've done is we've teamed up with Hanwell Town. I don't know how many of your members will know about Hanwell Town. Hopefully quite a few. However, 100 years ago, a group of Geordies came down to West London to a place called Hanwell, and they built a viaduct. And while they were there, they started a football team. That football team is now in non-league. They've got 20,000 followers on Twitter. It's blown up, and they're known. They play in black and white as the London Geordies. So it's only 20 minutes away from Craven Cottage, from Fulham. So what we'll all be doing is we're doing the Geordie double header. So we're going there for a 3 p.m. non-league game. You can drink in view of the pitch, lads. Imagine that. So that'll be good. And then after that, we'll go on to the 7 p.m. game. Now, if you can't make it all the way out to West London and you want to stay somewhere central, that's fine. The London Mags have booked a bar called the Temperance. That's the Temperance in Fulham. It's got 400 capacity and it's booked all day for any Mags, and follow the signs. It will say the London Mags on the door. So to recap, come and see us at Hanwell Town. I think it's £7.50 a ticket, but it includes a free drink as well. Nice. And then we'll all be travelling down to the match afterwards. So keep your stamina ready and your drinking shoes on. And if you're going to the match, come see us at Hanwell Town.
Nice.
Sounds like a good day.
That is absolutely class. As you said it, that actually. So I have heard the story about Hanwell Town. While you were speaking, I was trying to remember who told me, but I was probably full of beer at the time. As it happens, I was also going to say it's a good thing you're not doing the boat trip, because in general, a bunch of Irish lads wouldn't be allowed on it anyway. And that sounds class.
My girlfriend also works for Hanwell Town, so if I don't mention it in things like this, then my life's not worth living. So there you are.
It's good that you mentioned it, so everybody who'd be around there would be like, "Why would Freddie just stop harassing that poor girl while she's trying to work?" So it's good that you've got that out of the way. That sounds class, though. Really, really good. I don't know if we've many traveling, because obviously away games, loyalty points, especially for traveling fans, is hard. But if any of our listeners happen to be in London or are hanging around London, make sure to go. Freddie, are you going to the game?
I will be going to the game, yes. Nice. Alan's laughing. Who knows? However you get your tickets is your business.
Yes.
I will be going to the game. There's plenty of home tickets available as well. I just spied today, if anyone sees those, with increased capacity. It meant that the points have gone a bit lower, so you should see increased kind of access for people. I mean, it's a whole subject really about away tickets and home tickets. I'm aware that most of the Irish Mags travel to home games. I will just say on that point, you lads are lethal. Like, the amount of travel and games that you get to would put a lot of people in England to shame. But I'll be there, on Saturday. So look forward to seeing anyone. Like I say, we're an open door policy. So if any Irish mags are in London, me and Tev and Alan and Chris Shaw know this as well.
Mm.
If anyone's stuck or anything, like we're always bobbing between the two chats. So just reach out and you won't be short of people to go and have a pint with.
Absolutely love that.
Fantastic.
And
Fantastic.
we'll come to it shortly because we're going to preview that game, but fingers crossed it will be a good one because we'd love a little cup run after recent events. Okay, next question. Violin Mick on Patreon asks, how do we all start supporting the tune? Now, I think we touched on this in episode 1, but we might just do a quick flyby on all of us. So maybe in like 20, 30 seconds, lads, we'll explain where the Newcastle heritage has come from. Alan, let's go with you first.
Yeah, so I had no choice in the matter. So I was born. There was a Dublin jersey put onto me first. 5 minutes later, that was pulled off me, and there was a Newcastle jersey put onto me by my mad uncle. So 30 years of enjoying this madness and another 50 to go. So happy days.
No choice, but a good one.
That's exactly.
Fair enough. And Crisho, let's go to you, because this took an interesting turn in episode 1 when we talked about it.
But you're going to fine me for saying Man Red, so I'll just put another euro in the cup. That's like 19 euro or something. Look, I asked my mum for a United jersey. I meant Man United when I was 11. She came home. I opened the present. It was a black and white jersey. I held it up to my face. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say? Oh, Mum, it's the greatest jersey ever. Oh, it's exactly what I wanted. Brilliant. Boom, boom, boom. And when I went out to play in the playground and everything else, everyone was slagging me. And I thought, you know what? I like being different. Do you know what? Screw you guys with your Man United and Liverpool, like you were saying, Freddie. Screw these guys. And I was like, and then this is when they were kind of really, really getting good and on TV and that. And I just went with it as an 11-year-old, and I'm very glad that I did because our club has integrity and we're the real United. So, full stop.
That we are.
He's just pushed those kind of 20 years of pain and anguish and double relegations right back to the back of his mind and focused. But love that all the same. Freddie, you kind of touched on it a little bit because you were saying you kind of obviously growing up in London, but you didn't really have a specific team, and then you kind of landed on Newcastle. Tell us how that happened.
Yeah, well, what a brilliant story from Chris Show, by the way. I remember hearing that on your first episode, and I back you for that. It's brilliant. You forgive him for saying United.
Respect.
In terms of me, it's my older brother. It's like a bit like Alan, really. For somebody that had a choice, I didn't have a choice. It was my brother. It's a game against Arsenal, and for a long time I kind of resented him for that because I thought, why did you pick Arsenal? Why did you pick Newcastle over Arsenal? Because we would have had a much happier childhood. However, never look back. No, it was brilliant. So it was always that. And then first game at St James. I mean, I actually went away before I went home. It's just easier when you're in the south and there wasn't that much demand for tickets. But no, my first home game was the FA Cup against Chelsea when we won 1-0, nearly got snowed off. Patrick Kluivert scored at the Leeds' end. I was behind the goal. And yeah, just never looked back since, really. That was actually used in the film Goal as well. That's the first match that I used.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully that's a bit of a snippet. Yeah.
Love it.
Nice. Does that mean you're in the movie if we press pause at the right time?
Oh, I hope not. But yeah, probably.
Buried in there somewhere. That's class. Yeah, even myself, it was my choice, which I'm proud of. I did grow up in a Man Red household. My mother and father and my older brother were all Man United, and I suppose I was kind of pushed into it. But when I was about 7 or 8, it was when I think my father had managed to kind of get Sky Sports into the house again, west of Ireland, guys, and I started watching Rob Lee, Peter Beardsley, probably one game where it was the kit, and then it was Rob Lee, Peter Beardsley, Philippe Albert, and then kind of we saw Ginola coming through, Les Ferdinand, Aspria, and then obviously it was it just kind of took off from there. And you'll see up here over my right shoulder, we talked about this with Warren Barton, but I have my little Corinthians figures here from when I was I literally had those when I was that age. It's like 1996 maybe or something. So whatever, I might have been 9. And as I said before, my missus is delighted. They now take pride place in the kitchen. So, and yeah, just like you lads, just kept going with it. Liked the fact that it was a bit unique and not the same as everyone else. But paid the price when we were suffering. But again, that's a conversation for when I'm lying down on the couch someday. Next question. This came in from the Irish Tune on Patreon. and they've asked us to name our favourite, now maybe not best, but favourite all-time Newcastle United goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, and forward from the Premier League era. So basically, one for each position. We'll just rattle through them for the sake of time. Alan, we'll come to you first. So give us your 4 players, and you can, if there's any unique ones, we need to know why.
So keeper is given. You just found out last week why, because I lied to the Archbishop. Centre half or defender is Williamson, which you may,
Okay.
My surname is Williamson, so that's why. Yes. So, give you a laugh. It was in the stadium when he played for us and went up to get. I always get Williamson number 9 on the back of my jerseys, and your one printed it and was like, "Mate, he's number 6, not number 9. Like, what's the story?" I was like, "No, my name's Williamson." I was like, "I don't want to be associated with him." Now, don't get me wrong, he was a good player for us, but let's be honest, nobody wants a big Iron Mike on the back of their jersey. Midfielder, I'm going with Hatem Ben Arfa, even though he's really a forward or a winger. And striker, Alan Shearer. It's the only right answer there. I'll fight anyone who says something else.
I mean, it's like when Tev, back in episode 1, we were talking about like kind of Newcastle, just thinking back to nostalgia, and he came out with Obertan. Nobody expected that. I didn't see Mike Williamson coming into this conversation. Krisho, let's come to you and see if they're a little bit more standard, I guess, is the way I would describe it.
Obertan's just delighted. Obertan's just delighted his name got mentioned on the internet. He's like, oh.
Again.
Right. Shay Given, because Shay Given's a legend and the best shot stopper I've ever seen. And he was our goalkeeper when, going through the good times and the bad times. Colaccini, as a defender, happy birthday, Colo, if you're listening, with your curly hair. We won't sing the song because it's a bit too rude. I'm torn in midfield, but I'm going to go with Rob Lee because when I was a striker and then I kind of moved back into midfield, and the way he used to break through and that, I was just so impressed. He's just brilliant. And his goal, his completing debut for England was exceptional. And then Alan Shearer, because Alan Shearer is my hero and he's the best striker in the world. There you go.
Still, even now. Still is. Yeah. He can do no wrong. Love that. Excellent stuff. Freddie, let's see what you've got.
So I've got a struggle here to keep this fresh. Everyone's going to say Shay Given, but I'm going to go with a bit of a curveball, and I'm going to say it just based on the last week alone, because I actually went, because there's not been a game this weekend, I actually went to go and watch Gateshead because they were playing against Dorking. So has anyone clocked yet? I think Alan might have clocked it, but Gateshead's manager now is Rob Elliott. Again, topical, being on this podcast. Nailed it, Freddie. Thank you. You're welcome. But he was a class act all day. He was brilliant. And one of my girlfriend's friends has just signed for Gateshead on kind of like end of season, like signing. And it was just amazing to watch. His name's Kana Dom, and it was amazing to watch. Just stood by the bench watching Rob Elliott give instructions to like somebody making their professional debut. And I was like, what an amazing, like, unique experience. So I'm going to say Rob Elliott just for this week as well, because your listeners need something else in Shay Given, lads.
They do.
Exactly. Yeah. Defender. God, I can't really. I mean, I think I'm going to go with a comical answer and maybe say Olivier Bernard, just because I think he gave the greatest wobble ever when he went down.
We actually had that on screen last week, I think, because we were talking about Laurent Robert, and I'll probably put it up again on the YouTube. So if you are watching on YouTube, or if you want to jump over, you'll get to see a clip of, as Alan described it, the best KO in Newcastle United history.
Fantastic. Midfielder. I mean, you've already said Rob Lee. That's amazing. So I might switch it around and go Laurent Robert, because I mean, who remembers them free kicks, right? I mean, it was just the one, didn't he? It was amazing. And then I'll go with a controversial one up front, just because this was my era. I know you might want to fight me after this, Alan, but I am going to say, for the listener to have some kind of diversity on it, Craig Bellamy, just because when I was watching him, I fell in love with football, and also he's that kind of player where he was kind of a small build and he was quick. And he was giving it everything, and he would really rile people up to his own detriment sometimes, and to the team's detriment. However,
Yeah.
it was exciting football, and I'll always back him for that.
The only Newcastle player ever to damage the home dressing room, Craig Bellamy. He scraped Beller's 10 into the wall. Arsehole.
I'm sure he's proud of that. Nice one, Freddie. A couple more curveballs in there we weren't expecting, lads. But that's what we do around here. We trigger. I'll quickly give you mine. Again, it's impossible not to have Shay Given. I actually had that green goalkeeper jersey. I still have it in the house here in a box. I'm not going to say it fits me anymore because it doesn't. Not many things do. The clothes I bought last year don't fit me, Chris. Never mind the keeper jersey from 1997. I've gone with Jonathan Woodgate in at centre back. And it's interesting because I wasn't kind of naming him when we were doing our all-time 11, but again, in terms of like being one of my favorite defenders, I was so excited when he joined Newcastle, and when he was playing well, I think he even said it on an interview, like he was playing some of his best football at Newcastle. Now he just didn't do it enough, and obviously those injuries came into play, but he was like, when he was good, he was unbelievable. I just loved watching him, and it's not often you say that for a centre back. Midfield for me is David Ginola, and I say that because he was actually one of the first players I ever had in the back of the kit, and it was the Newcastle Brown Ale, button collar, like the famous kit, and again, like you remember when he joined, but then there was like the photos of him just hanging around with all these ladies in his Newcastle kit, and then he's just some of the goals he scored. So yeah, David Ginola. And then I nearly put down Faustino Asprilla for the striker here.
Great.
Again, I probably spent a year trying to do his goal celebration, playing as a kid, which was made even more interesting by the fact that I was a defender, so never got to score. But look, I can't not say Alan Shearer. It's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, I remember as a kid watching that game against Leicester where he scored that hat-trick and turned over a 3-1 deficit for us to win 4-3. It's just got Alan Shearer written all over it.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting names there. I did not expect to see Mike Williamson, Rob Elliott, or Craig Bellamy, but nonetheless, we are where we are, lads. So let's rattle through a few more of the questions, and then we're going to get into a bit about bad takes and a preview of some upcoming games. So Shay on Patreon asks, who do we prefer to lose in the summer if we have to lose one? Bruno or Big Joe? One-word answers, lads. Alan.
Big Joe.
Alan says Big Joe. Freddie, I think you're in agreement with that?
Don't want any of them to go. Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's an interesting choice, isn't it? Because I guess one word, Big Joe. Go on. Yeah.
Fair. Chris Shaw?
Jeff Hendrick. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. I'm sorry. Bruno, because I'm sorry to say that, lads, but Bruno, because we'll get a lot more money from him and we'll be able to spend it better. It breaks my heart to say that, Bruno.
Yeah.
I was tempted to say the same. The same thing went through my mind. I was like, you know what? If one of them's going to go, we'll get a lot more for Bruno. But I honestly think, lads, if Bruno wants to stay, I would have Bruno at Newcastle for life. He's always fit. We win when he's playing. The fans love him. He makes an effort to get the fans on his side. So yeah, I gotta say, keep Bruno. If we had to, we lose Big Joe. Right. Shay also asked about adjusting the volume of me to match you, lads. I think we've done that at the start, so hopefully this episode sounds a lot better. We did have 2 more questions. These are actually 2 guys I know. So Jura asked, if Eddie Howe were to leave Newcastle for any reason, who would you like to see in charge? Again, I'm going to go one-word answers, lads. Alan?
De Zerbi.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Whoa.
Chris, I'll come to you next.
Xabi Alonso.
Nice. Interesting as well. Freddie?
Mourinho.
So much for the one-word answers. If you're not watching on YouTube, Freddie has just done the pulling the pin out of the grenade action and tossed it, and it said Mourinho. Okay, I need to ask for one line on this. Why Mourinho?
He's not that, like, everyone, a lot of the people that give him rubbish about where he is currently is like, it's not all that. His siege mentality, he's much more of a Newcastle man than he is like a Man United man. And the Bobby thing, and if it doesn't work out, it'll be 6 months, won't it? And then we'll get someone else.
Yeah, as long as we don't have to pay him out, that'd be fine. I was thinking about Xabi Alonso as well, actually, Chris Show. But for the sake of variety, do you know, I'm going to throw Unai Emery in there. I'm super impressed by what he's done at Aston Villa.
Yeah.
Like to go in and basically take the same squad and just make it so much better. Yeah, it's what Eddie Howe has done as well. So yeah, I'll go to Unai Emery. Final question: if you could sign one player for Newcastle United in this window, somewhat realistic, so we probably won't have any Mbappes or Haalands in this conversation. Who would it be? That came from Eamon. Alan, go to you first again.
Amadou Onana.
Ooh, the Everton midfielder, and you're looking at that central midfield role again. Nice, like that. Krisho, come to you next.
The Garassi guy we were talking about, because we were talking a couple of episodes ago, I've watched him more, and I've gone back, and man, he would fit right in. He's delicious. Get him in.
Love it.
Yeah.
Freddie, over to you.
I'm just going to play it safe, and I'm just going to say Chowdhury on loan. We've had it for years.
So good.
This is the longest scouting mission in history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I honestly think like it's not one to overthink. Not too much expectation. Just go and get something like Phillips. Get that done. If it doesn't work, really, I wouldn't say a certain player. I'd say number 6.
Yeah. I'm the same. I definitely know we need a number 6, but Phillips isn't that for me. But I mean, if we're talking, you can tell me if you think this is realistic, lads. Because if I was just going to pick someone who I'd love to see in a Newcastle kit, it'd be Evan Ferguson for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Great shout.
We have to keep that quiet. We have to keep that quiet because he's coming. He's coming.
Yes, Chris, if you could store that under your armpit for future reference, that would be great.
I was at Brighton away when he absolutely tore us apart.
Yes.
And beyond the red mist, I did think, there's a future there.
Yeah.
Well, we can share the picture, Paul. Share the picture. Post prod. Of us convincing him that night in Dublin, and he gave us a couple of winks and a couple of nods, and
dig that one out.
And he seemed very positive about it.
And rightly so, especially if he knows about the Irish mags. Excellent, lads. We did also have one final question about by the end of the window, if we could do an independent review of Newcastle United ITK accounts and journalist transfer calls. But I think we'll park that till the end because we actually need to sign a player before we can.
Yeah.
So that would be that. Right. Let's go on to my favorite part of the week. And it is, of course, Krisho's bad take of the week. Take it away, Krisho.
I will take it away. And Freddie, I'm glad you did join us for this, right? I have 4, but I'm only going to pick 1.
Only.
Because I mean, just with all the transfers and everyone seems a bit down in the run of results and everything seems a bit negative, even though we're a positive bunch, right? The whole lot of us. Eddie Howe has 2 windows left before he's sacked. He's got this window now, and whether he gets a player in or not, and then the business that he does, he'll be ultimately judged next January. So this podcast in 1 year's time might be talking about our brand new manager. Will they do it? Yes, they will. If it doesn't work out in January and he doesn't really get what he wants and they don't replace the whole medical team, he'll be gone by the end of the summer. And that's the bad take that I've sniffed about. Yeah. The other one is that the season's been a complete failure and it doesn't matter what happens in the FA Cup, but we'll talk about that next week, right? But Eddie Howe has 2 windows and he's going to be judged on them. And obviously it's Dan Ashworth's work. Obviously just a lot of work done by a lot of other people. But if he can't get this right by the end of the season, or he doesn't get the January transfer window and the people he wants correct, they've already got the eye out. It's already there.
Freddie, look, I have a lot of things to say, but because this is you're the guest here, Freddie, and you're participating in something special in the bad take of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on that? Particularly thinking about, okay, if this window doesn't materialize into much, then you're looking at Eddie Howe's future riding on the summer.
Well, first up, Chris, I didn't know you were looking at my tweets. That's absolutely fine. In my head, I'm imagining like Eddie Howe running around like almost like in the Sunderland Till I Die second series, like offer 4 million for Will Grigg, like as if that's the way that this works. Like, do you know what I mean? I mean, yeah, there's always going to be stuff like that, isn't there? It's just it's people trying to explain big complex things really simplistically, and then it's almost on us trying to not get triggered by that, isn't it? That's the challenge.
Yeah. And it's, like you're saying, it's Howe is to rely on these windows. This is Eddie Howe who's getting some seriously fine tunes out of Steve Bruce players, out of Lascelles, out of Longstaff, out of Miggy, out of Fabian Scher. Like, what's he done wrong? Or when you can question some judgment calls here and there, but like, gosh, he's doing a lot with what he has. Anyway,
somebody has to be accountable. Somebody has to be accountable for all of this, right? And it's gonna fall on Eddie Howe. Trust me, it'll fall directly on his head. And just so I can sneak it in here with our London Irish guest, Gareth Southgate is on the way out, and Eddie Howe is the most perfect replacement as the England manager.
Oh dear.
I'm glad you said that the other way around, like that Eddie would go to England, and I thought you were going to say Southgate was going to replace him. Like,
no,
I do think
I'd take of the century.
I mean, ultimately, he is going to be judged on results, isn't he? And I think the uncomfortable conversation is that at some point something's got to give, and we will have to deal with this sort of thing. We will have to deal with. Currently, it's quite nice because it's just speculation, and we can all have a laugh and stuff like that. But in the future, it's the way it's going. I'm frightened of that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a business, lads. This is a business.
Well,
sorry.
As usual, only time will tell. No, Chris, you don't need to apologize. We ask you to bring us mad stuff, and then we talk about it. It's just to get our nerves as bad as they always are. But we will park that for now, and I'm sure we'll come back to it again. Okay, lads. So we're coming towards the end of the show, but before we do that, it is a little bit refreshing because we have football to speak about now. Remember we play games as a club?
Yeah.
It feels strange because Freddie, like we've been on here every week for the last couple of months, and we've had to talk about 2 games that just happened and then 2 games that are coming up.
Yep.
For a weekly podcast, it's a lot to get through. We're back in familiar territory because first up, we've talked about it already. We do have Fulham away. I think the main question, Alan, I'll come to you for this. And we look at Fulham on Saturday and then Villa on Tuesday evening, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So not much gap in between. But in terms of like our squad and players available, we've learned obviously that Joe Linton will not be available. Question marks around the likes of Callum Wilson. Any talks of any other players that might be back from injury, or are we literally going with the bare bones again?
Well, I did have a look on Premier Injuries earlier, which is the go-to site for Premier League injuries, and Livramento missed the last game, but that was through a viral illness that he should be back. Wilson, they're actually pegging to be back for the Villa game on Tuesday week, which would be massive. Okay. They're also saying that Joe Willock isn't exactly a mile away, that he could be in and around the maybe Luton game. And then Harvey Barnes should be back for the Luton game as well. And then everyone else is pretty crocked, if I'm honest with you. So starting to get a bit of a team back, but fingers crossed we can get a few more players onto the bench so that we don't have to have 17-year-old Louis Mighty playing 6 games a week and then doing Predator ads on the Friday.
Yeah. It always takes me back to the opening game of the season, which is timely because we're going to talk about Villa, but I was actually in St. James's, and the joy of watching us bring on Harvey Barnes and Callum Wilson and like just players of this, like Joe Willockson, to be able to bring on proper squad players who can make a difference. Like, no offense to the lads that are there, but it would just feel so good. But that also relies on us not picking up any injuries in between. Fingers crossed. I hope I haven't cursed us. Freddie, I suppose, especially seeing as you're a Londoner, do we have anything to fear realistically with Fulham, do you think? In terms of their personnel?
Fulham are a top side. They've got completely over what they had a few years ago when they were yo-yoing. Fulham can turn up whenever they want, really. We know that. I wouldn't be scared about going to Craven Cottage at all. We always have a good run there. We do all right. Last season was absolutely fantastic with that Almiron sort of worldy goal. I mean, I think we were 3-0 up at half time and everyone was just... I couldn't remember the second half. It was that good. But in terms of anything to fear, not really. What I would say is right now, in this situation, the injuries, what seems like a really bad state of affairs for us, is actually going to play into our hands because Eddie's going to get 5 days. even more now to work with that squad and work with them. And if there's any manager that's going to get a tune out of whatever the injury story is, it's going to be Eddie Howe. So time is actually, on this occasion for Fulham and for Villa, is on our side. So it may not look it in terms of, I know Alan mentions maybe Joe Willett coming back or other people. They're not going to be match fit. They're not going to be anywhere near the intensity that we want. However, the more time Eddie gets, the more confidence I have.
And the good news is, while we're hopefully doing wonderful things on the training ground, on the day this podcast comes out, Fulham will be playing Liverpool in their semi-final of the Carabao Cup. And that's the second leg, right? I think they got beaten 2-1 in the first leg. They did play well. But you'd like to think that whatever happens in that game, they'll be run ragged. We could do it extra time and penalties and breaking their hearts, etc. So that's always something to keep an eye on, because hopefully they'll come into it a bit tired and we'll be fresh and ready to go. Let's move on to Aston Villa. Because again, like we said, we don't think there'll be much difference in the squads. It is only 3 days later as well. But Villa are an entirely different proposition, I suppose. Like, you're talking about a cup game against Fulham, who may or may not be tired and emotional after their semi-final. Then we're back into basically one of the most informed teams in the league. Again, hard to believe considering we beat them 5-1 in the opening day of the season. And it was quite simply, it was a hammering. But they've come on so, like, they are not the same side. They've come on so, like, leaps and bounds doesn't even describe it. As we said, under Unai Emery. I guess, do you know what? I suppose the best way to talk about this, lads, everyone probably knows how good Aston Villa are. They know how good they've got Ollie Watkins and Diaby and the like. But I think the best way I could test you, lads, in terms of how you think we're going to do is get a prediction from each of you and then tell me why. So everyone loves this one, right? Alan, I'm going to come to you first. So we're away in Villa Park. They're second in the league, I believe. If that's still the case. Second, maybe third. Give us your thoughts.
Honest thoughts?
Sorry, they're fourth in the league now because there's been games happening, but there are games in hand, etc. Apologies.
Right. My heart is saying we're going to get a draw. My head is saying that these are going to run us out of the ground. They're going to do us 2-3, maybe 4-0. They done it last year. They made an awful show. It was in the second at Villa Park. I think they beat us 4-0, 3-0.
3-0.
3-0. Yeah, they gave us an absolute hiding. See that lad up front, Watkins. I hate him because he's unbelievable. He's a bully, and he's very, very quick for a very big lad, which is terrifying for the Newcastle backline.
Yeah.
So, offered me a draw right now, I'd snap the hand off you because Villa are in form and we are not in form. But come here, stranger things have happened. So I'm gonna go.
I was just gonna say we need a prediction, Alan.
2-1 Villa.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Back yourself, Alan.
Yeah, that's a first now. We don't often predict against
Newcastle.
But
I do.
But Chris was a different story. He called it that Luton were going to beat us, and you know what happened there. We will come to you, so Chris the Octopus, man of predictions. Tell us what's going to happen.
It's based off 2 or 3 conditions, right? How the Fulham game goes, and I think we've got a bit of a nice surprise for ourselves at Villa Park with some of the players that will be available. I think they've circled it on the calendar. I think we might have a couple of players that we've missed for quite a while. It depends on how Villa plays. If they play kind of get a bit disjointed, it'll be 1-1. If they don't, and I'm going to call this, and I'm sorry everybody who's listening, it's going to be 3-1 to Villa or 3-0 to Villa. I really don't like saying stuff like that, but
no, you're spot on though. Right.
But
wow.
I mean, yeah,
confidence is high today, guys.
I know, yeah.
Freddie, can you give us something positive to think about this game, please?
Yes, I can. I absolutely can. I went to Villa last year. It was a horrible day. Villa Park isn't very nice, and I had to drink in a car wash because there was nowhere else to drink. So we were stood there with cans by the side of the road after a 3-0 loss. Thanks, lads. But I think what it will be, I kind of predicted it because I went on all Villa no filler, which is we have the London Lions in London, so we hang out with Villa quite a bit. They're really nice lads. And last season we theyought, hang on a minute, they're on to something here. Flip it round though. I met with them on Sunday. So at the time of recording this is Monday, but yesterday they were playing on the pitch in our sort of 8-a-side team on the pitch next to us. So I went up and I had a chat with Gav and Adam from the Villa London Lions, and I said, "What's the kind of thoughts, right?" And they believe that a lot of their lads think it's a done deal already. So a lot of this stuff matters in terms of like going home and away. They think it's done, and I don't. I think learning that lesson from 3-0 last year, the first game of the season is really hard to gain anything from, because we played in some like American tournament a few weeks before as well, and it's like everything was up in the air, a few debuts, no match fitness. I think we're going to go back to draw Castle United 1-1.
1-1. I think we'd all take that, really, going away.
Yeah.
Snap the
I think
hand.
that's fair to say.
And
I was
then
actually, as you were
January
speaking
gone.
there, yeah, that'd be nice, because there's some tough fixtures, like having Man City, obviously, and Villa, and then the Cup in between. I was actually looking at while you were speaking as well, like they've lost to Forest already this year. Sheffield United held them in Villa Park. Only that was as recently as the 22nd of December. Obviously, United overturned them a 2-0 win. Sorry, they overturned a 2-0 deficit to win 3-2.
Who?
Already picked up on that. Hang on a second.
Hang on a second.
Man United. Did I say Man United?
10 quid,
when
10 quid in the jar.
When you're hosting, you're allowed to make mistakes. How's that?
No, come on.
I'm going to go 2-2. I think there'll be goals no matter what we look at it. I think, I've said this before, I think a lot of our success relies on Isak. And he has been playing quite well. So if we can keep that going, if we can see him score against Fulham, and if we play well enough, we won't have to get 90 minutes out of him. And then if Callum Wilson is around, I just think we can definitely get those goals. But so can they. So 2-2 for me. Excellent. Okay. Well, I'm glad we got some optimism there in the end, Freddie, because they were really bringing us down.
Yeah. And look on the ball.
Exactly. We've definitely got a case of two glasses of half empty and 2 glasses of half full, and hopefully we'll be drinking some full ones after that game. Before we come to the end of today's show, lads, we need to talk about those games in terms of the community and meetups more specifically. So, Alan, our Irish Mags local correspondent, I'm going to come to you first. Any meetups planned for either of the aforementioned fixtures against Fulham and Villa?
Yes. So both games are televised. So both games will be on in Bleecker Street Bar. So thank God. Fulham is a 8 o'clock kickoff. I think it's an 8 o'clock kickoff. I'm not entirely sure what time kickoff is, but it's an evening game. So get to the Bleecker about 2:30 or 3 o'clock, and you should be all right.
This is why Alan doesn't remember what time late kickoffs are, because he's been in the pub for 6 hours. And he doesn't.
7. So 7 o'clock kickoff. So yeah, any time from honestly 5:30, 6 o'clock onwards, we will be there.
Nice.
It is on the 27th. We then play Villa on the Tuesday. I don't know. Tuesday night. That is also televised. So that will be another one that we will have a meetup for. That one, being midweek and not being a Champions League game, may not be the best attended meetup, but we still will have a meetup for it. So come on down and join in the madness, as I always say. You're always more than welcome. And just to encourage lads to come in, I run our Facebook page, and 11 Geordie lasses will be there.
Wow, hold on.
For the Fulham game.
Well, hang on a second.
Oh, yes.
Hang
So
on.
I got a message one of the days last week just going, is there anywhere that be showing the Newcastle match? And I was like, yeah, come on down, bring your boyfriend or whoever you're coming with. And she was like, oh no, this is 11 girls from Newcastle. And I was like, yeah, definitely come down, obviously. Now, my Mrs. Emma was delighted when I told her this. So, yeah, basically.
It's all
come
set
on
up for
down to the
tape.
game.
It's all set up for tape. Just be standing there at the door. Hello, ladies. Come on in.
Paul's now thinking about making his first appearance in the Bleecker.
There is that. But Alan, I'm also thinking now, Facebook is not the most what I would call friendly and safe place. Are you sure this is real?
Yeah.
Have you been asked to provide any of your contact details or credit card information?
Yeah, well, they did ask me credit card number, and I did send it, but
That's what
How
they all
else
do,
would they
right?
know? How else would they know it was you?
exactly.
Alan had to prove that he was legit.
Yes.
Right. Sounds like the Bleecker Street Bar is the place to be if anyone's knocking about, either on Saturday evening or Tuesday evening. Freddie, let's check in on the London Mags events for the same games as well. Actually, while we're here, while we have you here.
Yeah, so there's loads going on. We're actually in our 60th year this year. So yeah, not
just
me,
just like Chris show.
Yeah, no, we're in our 60th year, so we've got lots of anniversary events coming up over the kind of next few months. So it's all go. In terms of this week, I think we've got there's a pool meetup happening Tuesday, which is kind of just a pool darts social. Then on the weekend, obviously, we're going to Hanwell Town. Then we're going to Fulham, and then after that for Villa. I think as it's a Tuesday night and everyone's a bit scarred from last season, we're going to seek refuge in the Dolphin, which is our pub. And I don't know if anyone's been there before. I know a few of the Irish Mags have. We'd absolutely love to see any of the Irish Mags come down to the Dolphin. That's kind of like our HQ. So if ever you're over in London and you're stuck and you want to see people in black and white, go to the Dolphin at King's Cross and you cannot go wrong, lads.
Fantastic.
Love that. I'd love to go and see it. Because I've obviously heard you guys speak about it, but I also heard was it George Calkin turned up there from he's obviously on the Pod on the Tyne, but obviously one of the Newcastle journalists for many years, and he was blown away by it as well. So top work there as well. We'll get there, lads. We'll get there. Mm-hmm. Just promise us a few free pints, Freddie, and we'll turn up. We won't be on the boat. That's all we know.
You're left to get past Mick from Tipperary. You can be a bit sour-faced at the end of the day, but I'm sure if he sees you lads, he'll offer a few free pints.
No, man. If Mick's from Tipperary, we're going to have to let the Dublin lads in the side door. He's not.
He won't like me.
I'll just put on an accent. Don't worry. I'll just put on an accent, to be honest.
Yeah, you're well used to it.
Yeah, well used to it.
Right. Well, on that note, before we insult anybody else, I think it's a good time to wrap up episode 8 of this week. A big thank you, of course, to my co-hosts, to Alan and Chris Show for joining this week. And, of course, to our special guest, Freddie from the London Mags. Great to have you on the show, Freddie. One more question for you, Freddie, would be, can you tell our listeners where they can find you on the socials?
Right, so you can find us at the London Mags on Twitter and at Instagram. And if you want to meet us in real life, we'll be at the Dolphin. And then if you want to follow more of the Irish Mags, you're at the Irish Mags, aren't you? And at Irish Tune as well. It's a bit of a mix. Which one do you follow? Yeah. And if you want to meet in real life, there's literally nowhere better. It's Bleecker Street Bar with Johnny Lee. He loves it. It's brilliant.
Absolutely.
And you've obviously been there, so it is the gospel truth. All of those links will, of course, be in the description below. Wherever you're listening, this podcast is, of course, available on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube, and most other popular podcast platforms. Don't forget to do the usual, guys. Like, subscribe, rate us, drop us a comment, share, everything, all of the nice things that we like to hear and see. A big thanks to everyone who submitted a question this week for our Q&A. We will be doing that again very soon, as well as hot takes. And I'm sure, guys, when we return next week, it is going to be nothing short of manic, because we will have played 2 more games of football to discuss, and we'll be at the very end of the January transfer window. So we'll have to try and relax and breathe. So until then, away the lads, slán guffall, and of course, we'll see you all next week. Say goodbye, lads.
Slán, lads.
Cheers, lads.
Slán,
all the best. See you next week.